Welcome back to another episode of Smile Sessions. Today, I would like to continue on with my day's post-op. On August 13th, Leo was given the green light to finally go home. Prior to his discharge, the nurse went over how to bathe him, and she flipped him over, and he had a large brown birthmark, almost like a small fingerprint mark on his back. The nurse immediately said that the pediatrician examined it and everything was good. Honestly, I wasn't alarmed by the birthmark, but I'm glad they took the necessary precautions. They are the experts. I would later learn that speaking to my father that he said his father had the exact same birthmark in the exact same spot. And Leo's due date was actually my grandfather's birthday. I thought it was nice to have made this connection. A nice little reminder on how our loved ones find ways to live on in our lives. The nurse helped to put Leo in his car seat and showed us how to properly strap him in. Then we got into our car for our first drive home as a family. I, of course, sat in the back seat with Leo with a pillow over my abdomen so that I could wear my seatbelt. When I tell you the pain I felt when we went over that first speed bump, I'm like, wonderful. This seems like this is going to be a very uncomfortable 20-minute car ride. This was new for me. I was so independent. I rarely got driven around. So I now had to be a backseat driver for the next 6 weeks. My partner, Vin, was being extra cautious, as you would expect from a new father. I remember how upset Vin got, but prior to Leo's birth, we both agreed that we would no longer engage in road rage reactions. Believe me, I've had my fair share of interactions, and what I've taken away from that is that only my peace is disturbed by succumbing to the anger outbursts, and half the time, the other person wasn't even paying attention and has no idea what they've left in their path. So they continue on with their day as normal, and I've completely fried my emotional energy bank. So over time, I've learned it's just not worth it. I was so happy when we got home. My body was very sore, and I just wanted to be resting. My neck was killing me too, while trying to get Leo to latch on for breastfeeding. When we got home, my mother texted Vin to see if they could come over. I was so tired and uncomfortable, I just wanted them to come by the following day. And of course, my mother took it personally, like I was trying to keep her away. So much so that when I needed to go to the chiropractor later that week, she didn't come over with my dad to watch Leo. That's just the petty type of behavior I had to put up with. Anyways, that first night home was definitely interesting. The medications from my C-section were starting to wear off, and I had a massive migraine and felt very nauseous. I fought off the nausea for as long as I could, but by 10 p.m. that evening, with my belly pillow in tow, I ended up vomiting in the bathroom. Thankfully, I made it in time. Vomiting after a C-section surgery can happen for several reasons. The use of anesthesia during the surgery is a common cause. It can lead to nausea and vomiting as a side effect. Pain medications given post-surgery can also cause nausea. Sometimes low blood pressure during or after the surgery can trigger nausea and vomiting. The body's natural response to the surgery itself can include nausea and vomiting. These symptoms are usually temporary and can be managed with medications or other treatments. If the vomiting persists, it's important to consult a healthcare provider. Thankfully, I was only sick that one time. I just remembered to press the pillow over my belly to prevent my stitches from popping open. Vomiting after a C-section can be very uncomfortable, but there are ways to manage it more effectively. Sip on clear fluids like water, ginger ale, or electrolyte solutions to stay hydrated. Help settle your stomach. Opt for bland, easy-to-digest foods like toast, banana, applesauce, and rice, also known as the brat diet. Ensure that you're getting plenty of rest and avoid sudden movements that might trigger nausea. Consult your healthcare provider about anti-nausea medications that are safe to take post-surgery. Try to stay in a comfortable, upright position to help reduce nausea. And again, if the vomiting persists or becomes severe, it's important to always contact your health care provider for further advice. 2 days later, we were off to Leo's first pediatrician appointment. It was approximately 30 minutes from home. We were late by 5 minutes, partially due to traffic, and also because I was moving at a snail pace, having just been cut open. I wasn't prepared for what was going to happen next. When we walked into the office, we were met by the two most miserable women on this planet. And I was dumbfounded because they were surrounded by babies all the time. How is this not the happiest place on earth? After being shot daggers with their eyes, or as my nonna would say, they gave me the malocchio. Here's a side note. The malocchio, also known as the evil eye, is a superstition found in the Italian culture and many other Mediterranean and Near Eastern cultures. It's believed to be a curse transmitted through a glare, often inspired by envy or jealousy. The curse is thought to bring bad luck, illness, or misfortune to the person at whom it is directed to. In order to protect against the malocchio, people often use amulets, prayers, and rituals. One common method to diagnose it involves dropping olive oil into water and observing if it forms an eye shape. My nonna taught me the removal ritual on Christmas Eve when I was 16 years old. The tradition of teaching the malocchio ritual on Christmas Eve is deeply rooted in the Italian culture. There are a few reasons for this. Christmas Eve is a time of family gatherings and traditions. It's a special night when families come together, making it the ideal time to pass down important cultural practices. Christmas Eve is associated with the birth of Jesus, a time of miracles and healing. This symbolic connection enhances the perceived power and effectiveness of the ritual. The ritual is often performed at midnight, adding a mystical element to the practice. This timing is believed to enhance the ritual's effectiveness. Going back to the pediatrician's office, we were brought into the examining room. When the pediatrician came in, she immediately started grilling us as to why we were late. Nothing like making me feel like shit more than I already did. This was so new to me, and being quite sore myself, I would have loved a little bit of compassion as opposed to the third degree. So I immediately got my back up with this place. Leo had lost 2 pounds from the time of his birth because of the jaundice and lack of appetite. Jaundice in newborns is a common condition where a baby's skin and the whites of their eyes turn yellow. This happens due to a high level of bilirubin, a yellow pigment produced during the normal breakdown of red blood cells. In newborns, the liver is often not mature enough to efficiently remove bilirubin from the bloodstream. There are several reasons why jaundice can occur in newborns. Physiological jaundice is the most common type and usually appears between the 2nd and 4th day of life. It's generally harmless and resolves on its own as the baby's liver matures. There's also breastfeeding jaundice, and this occurs in breastfed babies due to inadequate milk intake, leading to dehydration and reduced bilirubin elimination. Breast milk jaundice. Some substances in the breast milk can interfere with the liver's ability to process bilirubin. This type usually appears after the first week of life and can last for several weeks. Hemolytic jaundice occurs when there is an increased breakdown of red blood cells, often due to blood groups incompatibility between the mother and baby. Symptoms of jaundice in babies is yellowing of the skin and eyes, dark urine, which should normally be colorless in newborns, pale colored stool, poor feeding or lethargy in severe cases. Most cases of jaundice in newborns are mild and resolve without treatment. However, in some cases, treatment may be necessary. There is phototherapy, which is when the baby is placed under a special blue light that helps break down bilirubin in the skin. There's also exchange transfusion, which in several cases, the baby's blood may be replaced with fresh blood to quickly reduce the bilirubin levels. Adequate feeding ensures that the baby is well fed and helps reduce the bilirubin levels by promoting regular bowel movements. If you notice your baby has jaundice, it's important to consult a healthcare provider, especially if the jaundice appears within the first 24 hours of life. The baby is not feeding well, is very sleepy, or has dark urine and pale stools, or if the jaundice is worsening or not improving by after a week. My pediatric chiropractor told me that jaundice leaves the body through the head, so you will notice the baby's feet and legs looking less red or tanned, and that is a good sign. The doctor wanted us to return in 2 days to ensure that Leo was starting to put on weight. She also suggested that we swaddle him to help with sleeping. Babies often startle themselves while they sleep due to the Moro reflex, also known as the startle reflex. This is a normal involuntary response that typically occurs in newborns and infants up to 4 to 6 months. Here are some of the common triggers. Sudden, unexpected sounds can cause the baby to startle. Quick changes in position or movements can trigger the reflex. If the baby feels like they are falling, they may startle. The sudden change in temperature can also cause the reflex. The Moro reflex is a protective mechanism that helps babies to respond to potential threats. While it can sometimes wake them up, it's a sign of a healthy neurological development. To reduce the impact of the startle reflex, you can try swaddling your baby, which can provide a sense of security and limit their movements. However, this information was conflicting than what was provided to me from the nursing clinic I had attended at the hospital. I mentioned that to the doctor because they recommended leaving his hands free so that he could put his hands to his mouth to let us know that he was hungry. We tried the swaddle technique, but Leo wasn't having it. So we reverted back to having him sleep freely on his back. As a new parent, you quickly learn that no child is the same, so what works for your kid may not work for another one. You basically have to learn to adapt on the fly. 2 days later, we headed back to the pediatrician's office. And of course, even having left with plenty of extra time, we encountered construction, because that's just life in Toronto. So, round 2 of the miserable receptionists. This time, my anxiety is now through the roof. And another third-degree conversation from the doctor. I basically told her we were coming from Midtown, and it's not a convenient location, and that I wanted a referral to another doctor. She agreed and asked me to follow up once I decided which doctor I wanted for Leo moving forward. I was not about to have to deal with these people every single time I needed to bring my child in for an appointment. Thankfully, Leo started putting on weight and was headed in the right direction. His jaundice was improving as well. I mentioned to the doctor about Leo not passing his hearing test, and she asked for the follow-up details once we have his second test in the community in 2 weeks. Our journey home was filled with a mix of emotions and challenges. From the discovery of his birthmark, which connected him to his great-grandfather, to the bumpy car ride home and initial struggles with breastfeeding, it was a whirlwind of new experiences. Despite the discomfort and the unexpected hurdles, like dealing with my mother's reaction and the unpleasant pediatrician visit, we managed to navigate through it all. Leo's jaundice and weight loss were concerning, but with the right care and attention, he began to improve. The conflicting advice on swaddling was a reminder that every baby is unique. We have to adapt and find what works best for our child. The decision to switch pediatricians was necessary for peace of mind and Leo's well-being. As we settled into our new routine, it became clear that parenthood is a continuous learning process, filled with ups and downs. But through it all, the love and the bond we share with Leo makes every challenge worthwhile. Our first days at home were just the beginning of this incredible journey, and I look forward to all of the moments, big and small, that lie ahead. Until next time, keep your loved ones close and keep smiling.